Petrena is a public speaker, like I mentioned. She has organized several career and business conferences in the UK to help young people find the best routes and approaches when it comes to their career. Without much ado, I would like to introduce our host or our guest for tonight in person of Miss Petrena Notice. Miss Petrena, you are welcome once again. We are so glad you joined all the way from the UK to make time and then impart us tonight. We know it's 10 p.m. there, very late, but you still said you make this possible, and I'm so glad. You're very much welcome, Petrena.
Thank you so much, Avi. I'm super, super, super excited to be on your platform. So thank you so much. It's an honor to be on your platform. Get Connected is amazing. I see what you're doing with young people, raising leaders and just having that spirit of excellence. So kudos to you and thank you. A warm welcome to everyone. I think I know quite a few of you on here, and you might remember me from the last time. So what I'd say with our session for today, let's be as engaging as possible. Any questions you have, please feel free to ask me throughout the session, or you can save it till the end. So as Abraham said, I am a lecturer by profession and I do love public speaking, probably why I have a massive smile on my face right now. But as usual, I usually have a presentation just to help. So if you need the slides afterwards, please get in touch with AB. I will share this with him. So you might be asking yourself, am I going to be able to be a good public speaker? Because the reality is we all need to be good at public speaking. You might find that you need to public speak at church, you need to public speak in your workplace. And some people actually miss out on various opportunities because of that fear of not being able to, speak confidently or boldly. Shall I put it that way? But what I want you to do, I want to share this book with you even before I start. You probably can't see it, but it's Dale Carnegie, and it's the quick and easy way to effective public speaking. Okay, so that's the book. I'll also send the name to Abraham. He's amazing. Some of you might be familiar with Dale Carnegie, but he's an amazing author. So some of the tips that I'm speaking on today will be coming from his book and my personal experience as well. So public speaking essentially is that face-to-face communication. It's where, the person like myself, I'm not standing, I'm sitting, but in some instances you might be standing to deliver a speech to someone. But essentially, whilst you're giving out that information or you're communicating with someone, you want to be able to influence your audience. You want to captivate your audience. You want to sort of bring them into what you have to say. And even before I go any further, I must say to you, before you stand on any platform, you have to strongly believe that you have something to offer. You have to believe that what I'm going to say to whoever I'll be speaking to, they must essentially also believe in what I'm going to say. And that's why it's so important for you to come to that place where you also believe in yourself. So that's the first thing I want to say. Secondly, before you go on that platform, I also want you to think about these two things. I want you to think about how you can prepare yourself even before you go on that platform. And secondly, you need to think about how you're going to impress your audience. So one, will you impress your audience? Or two, will you go home feeling depressed? If you think that you won't be able to impress your audience or deliver to your audience, then you might want to take a step back to that invitation. One thing I've been taught is to not accept every invitation that I am given until I'm essentially prepared. And that's something that I will come to in a minute. So public speaking is any formal situation, like I said, and you're using that speech to influence and inform your audience. But essentially, it's not always in a formal setting. I had an interview without knowing I had an interview, and that's why you should always be prepared. I had a job interview, which literally required, when I got the email, it said, please come in for a chat. Okay, please come in for a chat. Now, it was an informal setting, but the way that I speak gave me that opportunity, or it was an opportunity for me to sell myself. I was able to influence those on the board for me to get that position. And that's why you must always be prepared. So what are the skills that you require when it comes on to public speaking? For every game, there's a skill that you need to win. That's the first thing. And it's the same in any area of life. You want to be a good intercessor, that you read the Bible, of course, but there are also amazing books. The same for leadership. You get various books in leadership if you want to be effective. So with public speaking, there are 3 key things that you want to master. First things first, you want to plan and you want to prepare. Like I said before, do not accept any invitations that you are not prepared to speak on. If you're not prepared, more than likely your audience will start to see into that. They might start to lose interest, but also you yourself, you're going on that platform knowing very well that you're not prepared. And when I say prepare, I mean mentally preparing yourself. Some would say psyching yourself up. So you're speaking confidence into your mindset. You're speaking confidence. So you're envisioning the platform that you're going to be on. That's your mental preparation. It can also be physical preparation. Maybe you need to go outside for a jog to calm yourself down. But then one of the most important things is you want to make sure that you have that knowledge to talk about whatever you're going to talk about. So if I knew, for example, that I'm not a public speaker, I have no experience on public speaking, I wouldn't have accepted the invitation to be on this platform. So you want to prepare yourself. You want to know the audience that you will be talking to, which I'll be coming to in a moment. And you also want to be very much aware of those positive nonverbal communication. So it's not just about standing and talking to your audience. It's about how you interact with the audience. Now, if I was standing in front of you, I would be making eye contact. So I'd be looking at you, trying to make eye contact. So my audience can know very much that I'm comfortable and I'm confident and I'm smiling. You know, I'm not nervous, I'm not drooling, I don't have my hands in my pocket, for example. And I can remember back to when I was doing my undergraduates, we had this presentation. A group of us were supposed to deliver our presentation. The presentation was going well. We'd done our preparation, we studied, we learnt the cases, you know, we're doing well at meeting. Only for one of my group members to stand up whilst he was doing his presentation, literally yawned. So he's like, yawning. Of course, we lost points because of that. So that's your non-verbal communication. In that instance, that was a negative experience anyway, just because of the action that would be considered a negative non-verbal communication. And essentially, you want to be confident. And that's why I'm saying be prepared before you go on any platform at all. It's not to say that you won't be nervous, because we all get nervous at some point when we're delivering. And truth be told, a lot of public speakers, they never get over that fear of public speaking. But for some people, like I said, they psych themselves up. And the moment they get on that stage, you can never tell that they are not confident in what they're doing. So you build your confidence before. And for me, one of the best ways that I build my confidence is to envision the platform that I'm going to speak and envision the needs of the audience and speak to myself and let myself know that actually what I have to say is important, what I will be delivering is important. And even as a lecturer, I can tell you when I just started out lecturing, I believe I was 23. And of course you have, you know, mature people, mature students actually coming on. You've got students that are, maybe they've studied law before, You've got students that are extremely intelligent. In every platform, there's always, in every classroom, there's always one that is extremely intelligent. And there's also some who thought at the time, okay, she's way too young. What does she have to offer? So before I went into every class, I made sure that I read and I overread and I overread and I overread. And I sort of, imagined the questions that the students would be asking me. So if I knew, okay, they're going to ask me, what was the meaning of that terminology? Can you give me the historical background of that terminology? So you want to make sure that whatever question your audience, is thinking, you kind of answer it before. So sometimes even with preachers, you might hear them say, well, you might be asking yourself. The same applies. If I'm able to master, what I think they will answer mentally, and I know the answer to it, that will boost my confidence. So you want to find ways to boost your personal confidence. With regards to planning and preparation, oftentimes, people think, well, they're just born good at public speaking. That is not the case. Some people, yes, it may be true that they're excellent at public speaking, but 90% of delivering a very, very good presentation or an excellent presentation, it comes down to your planning and it comes down to your preparation. That means the moment you receive the topic, you need to be researching about the topic. You need to prepare that message. But in order for you to prepare that message, whether it's in your company, so most companies, you have to deliver a presentation to your manager, to your clients. So you need to ask yourself, what is the purpose of this presentation? In order for you to deliver an effective presentation, you need to ask the questions. Who is it for? Who am I delivering my presentation to? What is my target audience? And how long do I have? One of the worst things a speaker can do is to go way beyond their time. So you want to make sure that you're very much aware. So your presentation will be aligned to the time that you've been given. So if you've been given 50 minutes to do a presentation, you need to practice. So do your research, outline your points that you're going to make, practice as much as you can. One of the things that will help with your preparation is to time your presentation, especially if you're not at that level where you're so confident in speaking. Time yourself. When I just started lecturing, hands up, I literally would prepare a 2-hour presentation and I would constantly go over that time in myself. Of course, now I've done it a long time, so I don't need to do that anymore, but that always helps. So even if it's the night before, make sure you time yourself so as not to go over the time and so as not to be below the time. You just want to hit that timing perfectly, because it will determine what will be in your presentation. It will determine the content. It will determine the length of your stories. It will determine what you're delivering to your target audience. Now, if you're going to deliver a presentation before your manager, the way that you will deliver it, it might be completely different from how you would deliver to your peers. Because there's a certain expectation from your peers and there's also a certain expectation from your managers. Now, it's not to say that you're not going to be excellent. You will be excellent, but it means that the way in which you're delivering the presentation, it must suit your target audience. If you're going to be talking to the youth, the way that you address the youth will be different from how you address maybe the elders. And so your approach, it needs to be, of course, it needs to be exceptional, but the target audience is going to determine pretty much what you put in that presentation. On planning and preparation, again, public speaking can only inform or influence the audience if you deliver it in a very structured manner. Now, if you have a presentation and when you finish the presentation, everyone's looking at you confused, or throughout the presentation, you start to realize that you're not captivating your audience, it might mean that you're not very structured. And this is why you need to prepare. This is why you need to allow yourself enough time to know exactly what you're talking about, to know exactly what you will be delivering. So you have your introduction, you have your main arguments, which we'll come to, and then you have a summary. If you have those things in place, for some people, you can always start with subheadings. What is advised, generally speaking, is that don't have, like I have a slide now. If I was reading word for word, it might be very difficult, one, for me to follow, very difficult, two, for you to follow everything word for word. So if you prepare yourself and you have notes, you might have subheadings that will help you to follow the order that you have in place, or you could have some key points, or you can have some bullet points, but essentially you don't want to have it scripted word for word, because sometimes what may happen, if you skip one or two words, you might actually throw yourself because you are trying to go word for word. So you want to just be prepared. So planning, prepare. And what I must say actually is, if you're so knowledgeable about a topic, you really should be able to flow on that topic. So remove the slides, remove the bullet points, remove the headings. I'm confident, I'm comfortable, this is me. And that is why I'm saying to you, before you deliver any presentation at all, be sure to do your homework, do your due diligence to the topic, and make sure that it's a topic that, you're well vested in, you've studied, you've read about it. This is me. I can literally close my eyes and talk about it. Find that topic and be confident enough to deliver on that. Fine. It might be the case that you're a student and you want to gain some skills on public speaking. We'll come to that in a moment, but the same applies. One of the things I always tell my students when they have presentation is not to do it word for word, and try and, sort of like be in that place where you've read something, you've learned that thing, you should be able to deliver it to someone. So before you even go to your main audience, try and recite it to your friends, try and teach the topic to your friends. And then you also see the gaps in perhaps your knowledge, or the gaps in your learning. If you're a student, once you're able to fill those gaps, then you'll be better able to deliver your presentation. Before I go any further, any questions, or shall I keep going, AB?
Yes, please keep going. I would open up the platform for Q&A like we do when you're done.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so in terms of non-verbal communication, as I said earlier, it's not just what you deliver, but it's also how you deliver it. Sometimes you might hear people say, it's not what you said, but it's how you said it. So the same applies, it's not just in your day-to-day talks, the same applies when it comes on to public speaking. For some people, the way that they carry themselves, you can immediately read whether or not that person is confident. So when you're on that stage and you're standing, you want to make sure that, the audience that you're talking to, one, they can actually hear what you're saying. Now, if I'm whispering, and you can't hear what I'm saying, you will automatically know that, one, I might not have the confidence, or two, I might not have the knowledge. So you want to also make sure that your pitch and your tone is perfect. You want to make sure that you're making eye contact. You want to make sure that you're smiling. So, people read a very positive, or, they get that positive vibe or positive energy from what you're saying. You also want to make sure that you're not folding your arms. That's important. That would be considered as a negative verbal communication, and I'll come to that in a moment. So it's 7% of your words in your entire delivery, 7% of your words, 23% in terms of your tone, and 70% is your body language. People can always shift their focus from what you're actually saying to your body language. So sometimes you find that people are looking at you from, head to toe, because they're actually thinking about how you're acting on that stage. And it's also important, the way that you dress. So let's say that you have a corporate interview, you need to do a presentation. Even for most professions, I believe you have to deliver a presentation. The way that you dress can actually determine whether or not you get that job. Now, when I had my first interview for a lecturing position and a scholarship, what my mentor at the time said to me is to dress in black and white, simple, because it won't cause too much focus in terms of how you're dressed. The colors, it's attractive, it's simple, and you keep it moving. So you don't want to go with bright colors, you don't want to go with pink, red hair. You want to keep it very simple, and also that will keep you very calm. For me, if I'm well dressed and I'm wearing high heels, I know, yes, I'm going to have a blast. And that comes back to finding the things that make you as a person feel extremely confident before you deliver your presentation. One of the things before I go into verbal communication is to have a goal in mind. And this is purpose. What is the purpose of your presentation? So all speeches, all presentations, whether you're going to be talking in a seminar, whether you're going to be delivering a workshop, whether you're going to be presenting your merchandise to a client, whether you're going to be selling an item, whether you're selling yourself, you need to ask yourself, what is the purpose? So if you're able to find out the why, you should be able to determine whether or not, one, you need to persuade. So do I need to persuade a client to buy my merchandise? Do I need to persuade my boss to give me that promotion? Do I need to persuade my youth group to pray more, to fast more? Whatever the case may be, how do I get these people is the question that you want to be asking yourself. Secondly, you want to ask yourself, am I trying to inform? Am I trying to deliver knowledge? Am I trying to let people understand where I'm coming from on a particular subject? Now, if you're trying to inform, or if you're trying to persuade, or if you're trying to sell something, the way in which you do that will be completely different. The way in which you teach, the way in which I teach my students will be different from how I teach our youth group at church. Yes, there will be some things that are very similar, but depending on the message that I'm trying to deliver, that will determine the approach. And even sometimes the subject that you're delivering will determine the outcome as well. You also want to ask yourself, am I trying to impress my audience? Am I trying to impress them? Or am I trying to convince them? And also you want to find out, am I trying to entertain them? And of course, some presentations actually can include all of these things. It could be that you need to entertain because you want to keep your audience alert and awake. Or it could be that you're trying to impress your manager at work. But ultimately, you want to ask yourself, what is the goal? What do I have in mind? So throughout your presentation, you're constantly thinking, I need to impress them. I need to impress myself. I want to make sure that I don't leave this platform feeling depressed. And I might only throw 2 or 3 words in there to keep everyone entertained. Now, in terms of nonverbal communication, these are positives. So maintain eye contact, keep your head up. Please do not look down. If you look down, straight away, we know that either you're not prepared or you're just not confident in what you're doing. And also for some people, you might see that they actually put their hands like this. But you want to be mindful of your gestures. You don't want to be throwing your arms too much. Of course, you can be quite interactive, but you don't want to be doing this too much. And you don't want to be too forward in people's faces. So keep your arms as free. If you're delivering a presentation, personally, I would opt for, putting my items away so my hands can be free. What is encouraged as well, but it depends on the platform that you're on, okay? Some platforms require that you stand still. And you can notice the difference with TED Talks, for example. Some like to stand still depending on what they're talking about. Others, they might move around a little bit. Preachers, they tend to move around. So like I said, it depends on the platform that you're on. Myself personally, when I'm teaching, if I'm in the lecture hall, I will pace back and forth because I want to make sure that I'm connecting with all my students in the lecture hall. I want to make sure that I'm picking on the groups at the back, the groups at the front, and also that I'm not missing what's happening within the classroom. So it comes down to the platform that you're on. What would be considered as negative examples of nonverbal communication? So keeping your head down, keeping a frown, looking aggressive. So people would even be afraid to ask you a question. You want to be known for someone who's got, a very inviting demeanor or a very inviting face. You want to make sure that, even when you're using your hand, you're using it in a particular way. And you want to make sure that you're not folding your arms. You want to make sure that you're not overdoing it when it comes on to wondering about the stage. So you don't pace. You can pace, but it depends. You might want to pace if you're going to address your audience on the left or on the right, or you need to showcase something, but don't do track and field on the stage. And don't make eye contact with one person. But I must say though, sometimes, just sometimes, there is one person in the audience that just soothes you and you just need to keep eye contact with that person. The only time I would encourage you to do that is if you're feeling extremely, extremely nervous and you need to calm yourself down. So you'd find that one friendly face to focus on until you calm your nerves. In terms of longer talks or longer speeches, one of the things you want to do is to find a way to get people's attention. Immediately. So the moment you get on the platform, some people tell a joke. I wouldn't always encourage you to tell a joke unless it's to calm you, because first impressions matter. But you want to find a way to get people's attention. You could start by asking a question, which is what I did. I said you might be asking yourself. And you want to make sure that you avoid getting unfavorable attention. So the way that you dress, for example, make sure it's suitable for the platform that you're on. Make sure, I'm sure you wouldn't be drunk or anything, but make sure you're hydrated. Make sure that you're not out of breath. So those little things. And you want to find claims to support your arguments. One of the things I even say in law when I'm lecturing is that whatever argument you're coming up with, make sure that you have evidence to back up your claims. So if you're going to tell a story, if you've heard a story from a friend who's told a friend who told a friend, make sure you do your background on that story. Don't come and talk about it. Don't say it as if you were there, you have first-hand knowledge. Make sure you are very, very aware of whether or not that story is true. You don't want to be known as the person who tells lies. It's not intentional. But what I'm saying is make sure that you do your due diligence, because that's going to stick with you. You'll be known for the person who told us something that's not true. So your credibility will be at stake. If you're at work and you need to deliver statistics, make sure that your statistics are actually true. And that means that you have to be very, very mindful about the things that you say whenever you're presenting. And what I can say to you as well, if you've done your due diligence, if you've gone to check those statistics, you know that the story that you're telling is true. It gives you like a certain confidence to talk so freely. You're not second guessing yourself. Is that true? What will people say? So you're supporting your main arguments. That means that when you start, you captivate their attention. You make sure that your main arguments are very strong points, and you appeal for action. So it could be that you want to summarize. So you make sure that you summarize. If you need people to buy into what you're selling, make that your last point. A few key things in terms of building confidence: know the room. If I were delivering this, if I was to deliver this, and I'll tell you, when I just started lecturing, actually, I would always go to the room beforehand, just to make sure that I feel comfortable. If you know the room, you can imagine yourself. So I've got number 5, visualize yourself speaking. And even before I came on this platform, I visualized myself speaking. It calms you because you know that you can do it. You're building yourself up before you get there. And you want to know your audience. So who will I be speaking to? So let's say I'm going to deliver, one of the benefits of my job actually is the very fact that you travel for conferences. So if I'm going to deliver an academic paper, and on the panel, I usually either check LinkedIn or I Google my peers. So I want to know, okay, where's this academic coming from? Will they be from the University of Kent or Leicester, etc.? So you know exactly who's going to be on your panel, and it gives you an idea of your target audience. Of course, you know your manager, so that should help in your delivery. If you're going to another institution, or to deliver a presentation at a company, you want to make sure that you do research in terms of the background of the company. It might determine the way in which you talk. It will determine the approach that you take. And you want to find a way to relax. That's key. When I just started public speaking, I was very, very nervous. I'm not so nervous now. One of the things I try to do is literally just breathe. And before I go up, I say all the scriptures I can think of. You know, he that kneels before Christ can stand before man. All of those things that you need, whatever you need literally to make you, it's about you and your delivery. It's not time for you to think about what the audience are going to think, what they're going to say. It's about you believing in yourself, knowing very much that, okay, I'm prepared for this. Also, you want to make sure that you don't apologize for being nervous. Whenever you go on any platform at all, even if you're shaking, don't say, I'm sorry that I'm so nervous. Because you're drawing negative attention to yourself. You're drawing people's attention to the fact that maybe you're not equipped to be there. You might very well be equipped, but the moment you say, I'm so sorry, I'm nervous, they're going to start to think, okay, hang on a minute. Why is Petrena on this platform? Why is Abraham on this platform? Because you know, if you're confident about what you're doing, you wouldn't be apologizing in the first place. And I want to say to you, concentrate on your message. You're passionate about what you're talking about. You know what you're talking about. You've done your research. You're prepared. You know, any presentation at all that you will be talking about, you must be prepared for the questions that are coming at you. And it's not to say that you will always know the questions, but because you know the topic, you know yourself, you can sort of like answer that question. You answer it in such a way that you bring it back to you. And of course, you build communication through public speaking opportunities. So every given public speaking opportunity that you get, if you're prepared, take it. So if they ask you to deliver an exhortation at church, take it. If your manager wants you to talk on a topic for 5 minutes, take it. If your peers want you to teach them something, take that opportunity, make the most of it. The more you do it, the better you become at it. And the longer you do it, you know, you'll be amazing. And in conclusion, I'll say preparation plus practice, it equals perfection. So remember, he who fails to prepare is preparing for failure. And that is the end of my presentation for today. Any questions, please?
Wow. What an amazing people. Hello, am I loud? Hello.
So I can hear you, AB, but your signal's quite poor.
Oh, okay, is it better now?
Much better, thank you.
Okay, so preparation plus practice equals perfection. That has been an amazing session with Petrena, the senior lecturer from the United States. We are so glad, and I believe all of you have learned a lot as well. I have my diary, I have my pen with me writing and all that. Without much ado, I would open the platform for question and answers. If you have any questions that you've been waiting to ask Ms. Petrena, the platform is open. And like we do it, you raise up your hand so I call you so that it doesn't appear that plenty people are talking at the same time. All right, so I'll take the first question from Yakubu. Yakubu, the floor is yours.
Good evening, and thank you so much for such a wonderful presentation. My name is Abdul Fattah, a student of UPSA, and my question is that simple. A lot of us as young people, like myself, years to be.
Yakubu,
Hello?
I would like to say those who are Nigeria where they can't talk, they might as well put their questions in the chat box. But respectfully, if you are not asking a question, kindly mute your microphone so we can have a presentation. Right, so Yakubu, you can go on.
All right, so as I was saying, a lot of us as young people, like myself, years to be public speakers, but actually we don't know how to get started. How do we get started as public speakers?
Okay, Petrena, would you want to answer that, or stick two more so you answer them?
That's fine. I'll start the question. Thank you so much for your question. But just to clarify, do you mean public speaking as in starting out on a platform, or public speaking as in gaining the knowledge for public speaking, just to clarify the question?
Yes, so Yakubu, can you come clearer on your questions? Were you asking her how to, is it gaining knowledge for public speaking, or what specifically were you asking her to answer? If you can come clearer on that.
Yes, actually, just building your confidence and then getting knowledge about the profession as well.
Okay, thank you for that. So what I would say first things first is to buy knowledge. Okay, any information that you want, it's in a book. And the best book I can actually recommend to you is the one that I'm holding. So it's Effective Public Speaking by Dale Carnegie. Sold millions of copies just because of how simple it is. So in terms of knowledge, I would say start by reading books in terms of public speaking. That's the first thing that I want to say. Secondly is to utilize the platforms that you have. It may very well be that if our hosts get connected, actually you could ask him, could you give me this platform, Abraham, to deliver something. You want to use the people around you. Don't be afraid, don't be shy. The most that they can say to you is no. Literally, you have nothing to lose, you can only gain. You can, if you're in one of the most excellent places to build your public speaking is your local church, your local youth group, your local fellowship. They might give you an opportunity to speak for 5 minutes. So what I will say to you, even if you're leading prayer for 2 minutes, do it in such a way as if you're talking to 10,000 people. Do it in such a way as if you're talking to millions of people. So remember what I said, you want to envision yourself on that platform every given opportunity, you use that opportunity. When you go to seminars and conferences, use the opportunity when you're asking questions to expand a little bit on that question. So you add a comment to that question. You just want to ask a question, or you add in a comment to your question. So you're actually delivering something in terms of what you're saying. It's an excellent way for you to grow in terms of your public speaking, but also in terms of your knowledge. So let's say I'm going to an academic conference on my area, which is investment law. My area, I want to talk about maybe mining in Jamaica. That's what my thesis is on. The presentation has nothing to do with mining, but I'm bringing their attention to the fact that this is my area. So I'll somehow find a way to talk about my area and ask that question. So you see, even if it's a minute or 2 minutes, you're literally utilizing those opportunities. Now, when people start to see that, wow, this person is actually good at talking in public, you might find that friends start to invite you to chair events, to chair conferences. One of the things I do in my church is I chair some of our events. Some of you might have seen me at Knowledge Revolution. It started by me chairing in church. Then Dr. Evans asked me to chair Knowledge Revolution, host Knowledge Revolution. So it's just utilizing those little platforms, because the reality is you never know who's watching you. You never know who is looking in your direction. And that comes back to the way that you carry yourself. So you see yourself as a public speaker, literally every day, dress like a public speaker, talk like a public speaker. It doesn't matter what your friends say. It's the way that you're envisioning yourself. It's your vision of who you are, and you carry yourself like that all the time. I hope that answers your question, Yakuba.
Right, thank you very much.
Please, thank you.
The next question is from Ayarga Mary. Mary, the floor is yours. Kindly ask your question.
Good evening, madam.
Yes, good evening.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity. I wanted to find out, assuming I have my audience, I know my audience, who they are, but in the process of maybe I've gotten there to deliver my speech, but the audience I was expecting to deliver the speech aren't there. How do I frame up by changing the content of my message?
Okay, thank you for that, Mary. Now, it depends on the situation that you're in. First thing I want to say to you is don't ever change your content because of your audience. So let's say I'm coming on Get Connected. I expect that I'm delivering a presentation and public speaking to young people, but for some reason, all I have is 80-year-olds, 70 years old. I'm not going to change my presentation. I'll be more respectful. I probably talk a little bit slower. I'll try to be a bit more respectful, but I'm not going to change my presentation. And the reason why you don't want to change your presentation is going to throw you. So what I would say is for you to be prepared to talk to a different audience without completely changing your target audience. Yes, you might have expected to have your boss and you're having your peers. It just means that you have to find a way to be confident on all platforms. I would encourage you not to change your content at all, but perhaps change the way in which you're delivering your presentation.
Right, don't change your content, change the way in delivering your message. I hope that answers your question, Mary. The next question I'll take from Prince. Prince, I see your hand up. The floor is yours.
Hello.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, my question is, when she said you should not apologize for being nervous, I want to ask, giving a presentation, me myself, I've seen that, hey, I'm nervous, I've been nervous, and I couldn't do the best. I couldn't do the best that I was even expecting from me. And I was really nervous and I couldn't do anything. Can't I just apologize to them that because of a reason or the other, I wasn't good with this presentation or something like that.
Okay, thank you for that, Prince. I would say no. The reason for that is sometimes when you're starting your presentation, you don't want to start with saying, I apologize, because you're starting your presentation on a very negative note. They already think, okay, he's nervous, it's not going to go well. And by changing people's perception or people's mindset about you, it will essentially determine the outcome of the presentation. One, you're already nervous. Two, you're drawing people's attention to the fact that you're nervous. What this means is that they're going to start looking at you funny. People will start to go on their phones, people will start to be on their laptops, people will start to look distracted. And when you're already nervous, start to notice that people are distracted, it's going to make you even more nervous. Now, it's not to say that you can't do it. I just would not recommend it. I would not want to start out on that note. And sometimes when you start out, you start nervous, but the presentation actually ends on a high note. And you don't want people to remember the start of your presentation. You want them to remember excellent points of your presentation, because you'd have found a way to relax yourself. It's not to say that you won't get nervous. The reality is that, especially if you're on a platform that you've never been on before, the faces are a bit scary. The reality is that you'll get nervous, but as you're building your points, you're talking about something that you know. You will eventually become so confident that you deliver in a way that you shake your nerves. So don't draw people's attention to the negative side of your presentation. You want to draw them to the positives. And that's why I'm encouraging you not to direct people or draw attention to your nerves.
Right. I believe
That's very good.
Yes, there are a lot of questions coming. Want to be able to answer everybody as well. Frederick, the floor is yours. I see your hand up, Frederick.
All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Frederick, a student of the University of Ghana. So I want to find out, at the point where you are beginning to deliver your speech, then you begin to get nervous or timid. How do you go about it? How do you gather yourself? Because sometimes when you get nervous, you go blank, as in you can't think far again. You can't really present well again. How do you gather yourself? How do you gather your thoughts to continue with your presentation?
Okay, thank you for that. Excellent question. What I would say, one of the things I mentioned is to have some notes, very brief notes. And the reason for that is if you lose yourself, you can always go back to one of those points. But one of the things that helps me personally is you can have a story that you can literally drop anywhere in the topic. And it's something that's personal for you. So by the time you would have told that story, you would have relaxed yourself. You're sharing an experience, an encounter that you might have had. But it's not just any story, it's something that's relevant to the topic. And I will be completely honest with you. I remember when I just started my thesis, one of the things we're encouraged to do is to deliver presentation. Now, I was delivering my presentation before the dean. I was delivering it to senior lecturers at the time. This is years ago. And I was actually talking about my own research. And in the middle of my own research, I went completely blank. My tongue was heavy. Literally, I was so confused. And I literally stopped in the middle of my presentation and I apologized because I had no other option. Now, if I had known at that time that I could have found something that I can relate to, or I should have had some notes that I can pick up on, or a point that I can pick up on, I wouldn't have had to stop in the middle of my presentation. I could have just picked up on a point, tell a story, something that's relevant to my research, and continue. Because in all spheres, you can always find something that you can draw your audience's attention to. So it's completely okay to take a deep breath whilst you're telling a story, because your mind is wandering, but because it's coming natural to you, you're literally flowing. So you're giving yourself 1 or 2 minutes to calm your nerves.
Right. Thank you very much. I hope your question has been